The idea of a United States of Europe, a single federal state encompassing the European Union, has been a topic of debate and speculation for decades. This concept envisions a unified Europe, where member states operate under a single government, much like the states in the United States of America. Proponents envision a superpower, rivaling the likes of the United States and China, built on shared values and economic strength. They argue that a united Europe could wield significant global influence, ensuring peace and stability within its borders and beyond. The economic benefits could be substantial, with a single market and currency streamlining trade and investment. Opponents fear a loss of national sovereignty, cultural identity, and democratic accountability. They worry that a centralized government could erode the unique traditions and languages of individual nations, leading to a homogenized European culture. Additionally, there are concerns about the democratic deficit, where decisions made by a distant central authority might not reflect the will of the people in each member state. This essay will delve into the historical context of European integration, exploring the arguments both for and against further unification. From the aftermath of World War II to the formation of the European Economic Community and eventually the European Union, the journey towards integration has been complex and multifaceted. We will examine the potential benefits of a United States of Europe, such as enhanced global influence and economic prosperity. A unified Europe could negotiate more effectively on the world stage, addressing global challenges like climate change, security threats, and economic crises with a cohesive strategy. Conversely, we will consider the challenges and drawbacks, including concerns over national identity, democratic legitimacy, and economic disparities. The economic differences between member states could pose significant challenges, with wealthier nations potentially bearing the burden of supporting less affluent ones. The future of Europe remains uncertain. The path towards a United States of Europe is fraught with obstacles, both political and economic. The rise of populist movements and Euroscepticism in various countries highlights the growing discontent with the idea of deeper integration. The EU faces internal divisions and external pressures that will shape its trajectory. Issues such as Brexit, migration, and economic inequality continue to test the unity of the European Union. External pressures from global powers and shifting geopolitical landscapes add further complexity to the situation. By understanding the arguments surrounding a potential United States of Europe, we can better grasp the complexities of European integration and the choices that lie ahead. The debate is not just about political structures, but also about the values and identities that define Europe. Ultimately, the question remains, will the European Union continue its path toward ever closer union, or will it forge a different path, balancing national interests with shared goals? The answer will shape the future of Europe and its role in the world for generations to come. The European Union, in its current form, is the culmination of decades of integration efforts, born from the ashes of World War II. The devastation left behind by the war was unprecedented, and it became clear that a new approach was needed to ensure such a catastrophe would never happen again. Leaders across Europe recognized that unity and cooperation were essential for lasting peace and stability. The devastation and division wrought by the war spurred a desire for lasting peace and cooperation among European nations. The continent was left in ruins, both physically and politically, and the need for a new order was evident. This desire for unity was not just about preventing future wars, but also about rebuilding economies and societies that had been shattered. The first seeds of the EU were sown with the creation of the European Coal and Steel Community in 1951. This initiative was a bold step towards economic collaboration, focusing on two critical industries that were essential for war-making. By managing these resources jointly, the founding nations aimed to make war not only undesirable, but also materially impossible. This pioneering agreement placed French and German coal and steel production under a common management, aiming to prevent future conflict by fostering economic interdependence. The idea was simple yet revolutionary. By tying their economies together, the countries would be less likely to engage in conflict. This model of cooperation set the stage for future agreements and expansions. Over the following decades, the European project expanded both in scope and membership. What began as a small community of 6 nations grew to encompass a vast and diverse union. Each new treaty and agreement brought the member states closer together, integrating their economies, legal systems, and even aspects of their political governance. The Treaty of Rome in 1957 established the European Economic Community, EEC, laying the groundwork for a common market and further economic integration. This treaty was a significant milestone, as it aimed to create a single market where goods, services, people, and capital could move freely. It was a bold vision of a united Europe, working together for mutual prosperity. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 and the subsequent collapse of the Soviet Union marked a turning point for Europe. These events not only symbolized the end of the Cold War, but also opened the door for the reintegration of Eastern Europe into the broader European framework. It was a moment of hope and renewal, as countries that had been divided for decades could now come together. The reunification of Germany and the integration of former Eastern Bloc countries into the EU expanded the bloc's reach and influence. This expansion was not without its challenges, as the EU had to adapt to a more diverse membership with varying levels of economic development. However, it also brought new opportunities for growth and cooperation, solidifying the EU's role as a major global player. Proponents of a United States of Europe argue that further integration is essential for Europe to maintain its global standing in an increasingly multipolar world, where power dynamics are constantly shifting. They envision a federal Europe as a counterweight to the rising power of China and the assertive stance of Russia, which have been growing concerns for the continent. A United States of Europe, they argue, would wield greater economic clout, allowing it to negotiate more effectively in international trade agreements and exert greater influence over global financial institutions, shaping global economic policies. A common foreign and defense policy would enable Europe to project power more effectively and play a more decisive role in global security, ensuring stability. Moreover, proponents argue that a federal Europe would be better positioned to address transnational challenges such as climate change, migration, and pandemics, which require collective action. By pooling resources and coordinating policies, a more integrated Europe could tackle these shared problems more effectively than individual nation-states, leading to more sustainable solutions. Opponents of a United States of Europe counter that such a transformation would come at a high cost, sacrificing national sovereignty and eroding cultural identities. They argue that the rich tapestry of European cultures, each with its own unique history and traditions, would be at risk of being overshadowed by a monolithic European identity. They view the EU as an undemocratic entity, driven by unelected bureaucrats in Brussels, and fear that further integration would exacerbate the democratic deficit. The lack of direct accountability to the people, they argue, makes it difficult for citizens to influence decisions that affect their daily lives. They argue that a federal Europe would necessitate the transfer of significant powers from national governments to a central European government. This centralization of authority, they believe, would strip nations of their ability to govern themselves effectively and respond to the unique challenges they face. This loss of sovereignty, they contend, would undermine national self-determination and weaken the ability of national governments to respond to the specific needs of their citizens. National governments, they argue, are better positioned to understand and address the concerns of their populations, from economic policies to social services. Furthermore, opponents express concern that the creation of a United States of Europe would lead to a homogenization of European cultures, erasing the unique traditions and identities of individual nations. They fear that the rich cultural heritage that makes Europe so diverse and vibrant would be diluted in favor of a more uniform European culture. They fear that a pan-European identity would supplant national identities, leading to a loss of cultural diversity and a weakening of social cohesion. The sense of belonging and pride that comes from national identity, they argue, is crucial for social harmony and unity within each country. Without it, they worry that social cohesion could fray, leading to increased tensions and divisions within European societies. What do you think about the idea of the United States of Europe? Let me know in the comments.